reforming gerrymandering seems politically impossible. Could encouraging get out the vote be a sensible plan to reduce the power of redrawing districts? So maybe start with Brian on that, since you just did a gerrymandering reform.
Yeah, it's not impossible. It's hard as hell, but it's not impossible. And you need to work hard and get lucky like you do with everything. I mean, we're in this populist wave, though, that looks a lot like 120 years ago, where we got, popularly elected US senators, women, the right to vote, all sorts of kind of progressive era. We're in that wave again. And so the question is, what are we going to do with it? And I think redistricting reform, particularly because gerrymandering is getting so egregious, because the technology that enables the bad guys to do it really badly, it's just become so apparent, right? It's not something we're going to ignore. And so, but I do think, and the point about turnout is huge, because the difference in Virginia's election in 2015 under the old gerrymandered maps from that compromise they did, where the entire legislature was up and not a single seat changed hands in 2015. And they were just like the most uncompetitive we've ever had it in Virginia. And that's saying something, because we are usually fairly uncompetitive. The difference between that and 2017, when all of a sudden Democrats woke up and turned out in, record numbers for the Commonwealth, for everybody, but for the Commonwealth for sure. The difference in that was all of a sudden Virginia, which is net, a 50-50 state, it's probably a little more purple now. It's probably 53 or something like that, blue. But, it started to look like that in a year where, to Michael's point earlier, like people weren't voting in presidential, people weren't voting in non-presidential elections. We have off-year elections, and that's kind of partly by design, even if it was a happenstance originally. So the turnout mattered. And that's the other thing, is the people drawing these maps, the gerrymanderers, are drawing it where they're winning. They're going to win their seats, districts, by kind of as little reasonably as they could possibly do, because they don't want to waste their voters, right? And they're going to make the other guy win it by, the Democrats have to win somewhere. So the Wisconsin Republicans are going to give them victories, but they're going to win with so many wasted votes. They're going to win 90-10 or something like that. Whereas in the districts where they're planning to win, they're holding it at 55, 56, 57%. And if you have a turnout that goes through the roof and really flips the script on who they expected to be voting there, then all of a sudden you can overcome a gerrymander. It's a lot of work, but you can overcome
it. I would just say, because of, Brian's absolutely right. When you draw a map, it's based on certain expectations about who will vote and what the turnout will look like, and you're sort of planning for it. But, if you build a 5-foot wall and you have like a 8-foot wave, you're going to be overwhelmed by that. But, because turnout has been increasing, it is possible now, to plan to build an 8-foot wall, right? In other words, you can plan for, higher turnout, and, some of that will be baked in. And, really, Democrats got lucky. Democrats lost the U.S. House in 2012, won it back in 2018, but there were a lot of unexpected developments, including, higher turnout, but also the effect of Donald Trump, right, and moving suburban voters toward Democrats and things like that. I think if you had sort of a different president, if Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush had become president, a more normal Republican, albeit a conservative one, I don't know that you would have had that sort of reaction, and it may have been that you had a Republican House for the whole of the decade, and now you can sort of plan for that. Having Republicans having seen the disaster scenario, they can sort of be more prudent this time, and bake in, do a better job of baking in their seats.
Ryan, let me just interject in terms of the technology of how you do all this. It is what Michael is saying is that's the toolkit that these people use. In fact, to extend your analogy, Michael, I would say they even know now where to build the 8-foot walls and where to build the 5-foot walls. It tells them that. And they even use predictive kind of things that say, because Virginia is charting to trend blue, then that means we have to be more careful about this rather than this. It isn't as simple as just saying what happened in the last election, and if we did it this way, we would win. It is a much more sophisticated set of things like that. And if you don't believe that, take a look when Amazon tells you what you're going to buy next next week that way. It's the same technology that goes into that, but
Yeah,
it's a little.
Jim, oh, sorry. Jim is absolutely right. I mean, the modeling that goes into redistricting now is absolutely incredible. You know, like it's the same kind of marketing that Amazon uses or that Instagram uses. You know, it's based on what you post on Facebook, what kind of car you drive, you know, all kinds of things. So they can build a very sophisticated model about not only are you a Democrat or Republican, but how strong a Democrat or Republican you are, how likely you are to vote in off-year elections. And, you know, it is, you are able to draw maps with increasing micro precision as a result.